I had the pleasure to sit down with Simon Gould, CEO of Sydney Digital Marketing, based in Sydney, Australia. Now, I used to work with Simon back in the UK a long time ago, and this is the first time we have spoken in more than 20 years. So, hope you enjoy our conversation. Mr. Simon Gould, the legend in person. It's very nice to speak to you and very strange to speak to you. Because it's been something like, I don't know, 22 years or something since we actually last spoke.
Almost. Yeah, I left the UK in 2004 when we were last, I think, working together. But I think we probably, even prior to that, it was probably a year and a half or so before we actually, when we stopped working together, because I sort of got Universal Kiosks going, etc. And we were working together with the odd internet kiosk business, which was extremely challenging at the time, as you well remember.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing about this was so long ago. I was quite young. And I mean, I must have been really annoying thinking back on it. Because I know I just didn't do the things I was supposed to do, like getting up early in the morning to go around looking after the internet kiosks in the stations. I was like, no, I'll just go a little bit later. No one will notice. And funnily enough, everybody did notice. I must have been a right pain in the ass.
Well, here we are. So obviously not that big a pain. Otherwise, I would have blanked you when we reconnected again on LinkedIn. So no, it's really nice to reconnect after all these years. And as you know, I was just back in Brighton very recently, like last week, as a matter of fact, and driving from sort of Brighton and Hove up to go and see my mum, and driving past, you guys were down on a little sort of like Mews or something, I think, from memory, not far from the train line. So I thought of you each time that I went across that bridge. And as I said to you, your tomato plants just...
Isn't it funny the things you remember?
Weird things to remember, weird recollections you have of people. But,
and I mean, I only lived there for a year, I think, in Brighton or Hove. But I loved it there, and I always meant to go back. I always said I would return to live there, and it has never happened so far. I guess other things just take you in other places. But I really liked it there. It was a shame to have to leave, actually.
It's a great city. I obviously very fond memories. So many vignettes of my time in Brighton, being born there, growing up there. Fantastic, rustic, falling apart like the whole of England.
Is it falling apart?
Yeah, it is. So I mean, it's been falling apart for probably the last 100 years or so.
Well,
so
actually,
but there's just something that is very special, certainly to me, but to a lot of people. Every time you mention, I'm from Brighton, they go, I love Brighton, got so many good memories. Used to jump on the train and go down there for the weekend, or went on the Palace Pier, or to the Pavilion, or I went and saw Fatboy Slim there, or I went and saw Tom Jones there, or everybody's got a Brighton story.
Yeah. Did you go to the Fatboy Slim concert? What year was that?
Couple.
2001? Something like that?
Yeah, I think 2001, 2002. It was crazy.
Were you there?
Yeah.
Right. I was there as well, but also with about like 300,000 other people, and when they were expecting about 20,000.
That's right.
Yeah.
We'd been at the Goodwood Festival of Speed for the first one, and hello. And then
nice. Magic. Amazing. Yeah, nice. Australia truly is a wonderful place.
Yeah. So we I remember coming in off that, and all these people were pouring down through sort of Brunswick Square where we lived, and heading onto the seafront. We're going, what's going on? And then we found out that the first one was on. So I think it did too. But yeah, Brighton's it's a cool town. It's a really cool town. It's just great to still have that connection there. Mum's there. Mm-hmm. Two very good friends are still there, and every time I go back to catch up with them, it's just like putting on a old pair of gloves or something. Just easy. So yeah, nice.
Well, let's just go back a little bit. Sorry, you were about to say.
No. You go.
I just wanted to go back to how we very first met. Do you remember how we first met?
I'm going to hazard a guess that it was an introduction from somebody, that maybe you were looking for some part-time work, maybe?
No, it's completely wrong.
Really? Okay. Excellent.
I'm surprised you don't remember, because I remember it because it was quite quite a significant thing. I think it was because I was working at the Virgin Megastore in Manchester, and you had an internet kiosk there.
That's right.
And it was just at the time when your first child was being born,
Josh.
and there was a problem with the internet kiosk, and I think you were the only person on board at the time, and you were doing all the support yourself.
Yes.
And obviously you had a contract with them and they wanted it working, and you were supposed to be coming up to Manchester at the same time that your son was being born. And I just happened to be into tech and computers and was fiddling with the thing anyway, I think, and helped you out fixing it so you didn't have to make the trip. So at the time, it was just good timing that I just happened to be there and happened to like tech and happened to be able to help you fix this internet kiosk. But then we kept in touch after that.
Hilarious. Good memory.
Yeah.
Good memory. There are things, as you'll find as you go a little bit older, that get a little bit older, like myself, that just things start to sort of get a little bit blurry in some years. But I do remember now that you were probably tasked with speaking to the guy that owned the kiosk, and then I said to you, I'll push this, push this, push that, and we probably got it up and running again. And as you say, we stayed in touch.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, because I just remember it. Well, because it was obviously a really significant thing for you, and I thought, oh well, that was just quite fortunate that I was able to help with that. And you were at the time like, really, really grateful that you didn't have to make this journey from London or Brighton to Manchester.
Brighton to Manchester.
Yeah,
100%. Thanks for the reminder.
That's all right. So you've been back in Australia for a long time now, and I suppose you're one of the first people who was actually an entrepreneur who I met, who'd actually started his own business and was running his own thing and wore suits and things and was interviewed by people, which was quite interesting at the time. So tell me a little bit about your first forays into entrepreneurship, if you can remember that part.
Yeah, that I can. The drivers and the stories behind that, I can, absolutely. I'd been in the UK back in the UK again when I was about 21. When I came back to Australia after a bit backpacking and traveling around, I went to work with a friend of mine who was working with a company who had quite a clever marketing company, vertically integrated, where they did fundraising for schools to produce safety material for the kids to learn about things like stranger danger, what to do in the case of a fire. They came up with a couple of cartoon characters. One was Constable Care, one was Bernie Cinders for the fire brigade and the police force.
Bernie Cinders?
Bernie Cinders, yeah.
Right. Fantastic.
You can imagine sitting around on a Friday afternoon, beers, going, let's come up with some names. I've got it, Bernie Cinders. And they... what they would do is they'd get local businesses, they'd call local businesses telemarketing, and they would ask them to support the local school, to support the production of this material that would go into the schools, little colouring in things and little booklets. And in return, the local business would be acknowledged as a sponsor on the material that would go in. So, a nice feel-good sort of local sponsorship. Now, there's more to the story than that. But anyway, that gave me... they were an interesting organisation, put it that way, that was doing this work. But it gave me the idea that you could call up businesses, produce something that had something of value to the community, get businesses to pay to have their name associated with that community message, let's say, and build a business out of it. So having come back from the UK, recycling and the environment was just, I'm talking 1992, 91, 92. Recycling was, sorry, let me just turn off my notifications there. So recycling was just starting to become a thing. People didn't know how to recycle. So I thought, okay, well, there's a there's an opportunity for me to gather people around an emotive issue and get them to be acknowledged for that. So my first entrepreneurial stint was to start this thing. It was called Recycle. Everybody's doing it. A bit of a mouthful. I wasn't so much into my sort of branding and marketing piece there, but I had the idea. I got a nice little A4 chart designed, and it had paper. It was cut into 4: paper, metal, plastic, and glass. And you could sponsor each one of these things, and it would tell you when your recycling was picked up, how to separate your rubbish into recycling compartments. I got it translated into a dozen different languages because we're very multicultural, obviously, here in Sydney as well. And then I would ring up businesses, tell them about it, get them to buy into sponsoring this piece for their local community. So we divided Sydney up into a number of areas. Anyway, so that went well. And we made some money out of it and started a business. But the feedback that I got from the clients when I went to renew them the next time, and sorry, just one little piece on entrepreneurial thinking. Mm-hmm. When we went out to see people, I had an A4 piece of paper. Everyone's like, great idea, but I don't think anybody's going to stick that on their fridge. Now, bearing in mind, I'm sort of 23 at the time. So now, as a family man, I've got school stuff and photos and everything all over my fridge, but I didn't really think about that. So what we did was we divided it into an A5 sheet, reduced the artwork, reduced the thing, and then all of a sudden it went gangbusters. So we started getting people to sign up for that. So my entrepreneurial message there is, don't give up after getting the first knockback. Just keep rethinking how you can get your product or service to market. Yeah. And then people weren't renewing. And this is what this other company had. They could ring up, where I got the idea from. They could ring up their clients a year later, 6 months later. Hi, it's Simon again, calling from Constable Care. Just wondered if you'd like to support us again. And they go, yep, sure, no problem. Here's a check. So what I thought was, okay, I've got this database now of all of these businesses. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create something that they can track the response from. This is obviously very pre-internet. This is 92, 93. So I developed another brand called Sydney Super Savers, and we use sort of like the Superman logo. And then we go back to the same businesses and say, look, we're creating a coupon booklet, so you'll be able to track direct response. I mean, obviously it's old school now, but at the time, it was like a good idea. So I did that for a while. We did that for quite a few years, actually, about 4 or 5 years. I managed to get a nice red convertible sports car out of it in my late 20s, every 20-something man's dream. Mm-hmm. And I ran that for about 4 years, I think. And then the internet started. And a friend of mine and I, again, the red sports car has a lot to play here. It was a TVR, which there weren't many of in Australia. Yeah, nice. And one day, the driver's side window just smashed as I was closing the door. I was driving to my friend's house. He'd just got on the internet. He said to me, let's jump on the internet and see if we can find you a spare part. And I'm like, what are you talking about? How, blah, 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 this internet thing, never heard about it. This is 95, 96. Anyway, so then we had a few beers. We said, wouldn't it be great to come up with a coin-operated internet machine or kiosk that people could learn about the internet, that they could put $1 or $2 in or something. And then we thought, well, that's a great idea. How do we make it work? We went and sourced some hardware. We went and sourced a coin mechanism. And then we had to find a software developer who could make a coin mechanism sell time on a computer.
Yeah.
So people could just buy time, and it had never been done before, and still we stand by the story that it was the world's first coin-operated internet kiosk. And that was probably my first big opportunity for business, working with some big brands, working at the cutting edge of technology, something completely revolutionary. And I always, from the very beginning of designing these kiosks, whilst the coins to the slot was always going to be a good source of revenue for us, the selling of the branding, the advertising, as you remember, we did the Virgin Mega Store. We designed one specifically for Virgin. So I always saw the outside as a bit of a value add, if you like, from a branding and marketing point of view. So we pulled in people like Dell, Telstra, who's Australia's BT, if you like, and they wanted to sponsor all of the kiosks that we had out at the time with their Big Pond ISP product. They were very late to market with. So we developed a number of really good strategic alliances, and that also provided some funding for us to roll out more kiosks. And we also sold some franchises as well to people in Australia. Lots of internal political machinations, if you like, with the people that I was doing business with, business partners, etc., that led me to taking a round-the-world trip taking some time out, taking a round-the-world trip with Dominique. You might recall, my now ex-partner, lovely partner at the time. And when I came back to Australia, I said to my business partner, no one's doing this overseas. I think by now we're looking at about 1997. No one's doing this overseas. We probably by that stage had maybe 200 kiosks, 200 or 300 kiosks out around Australia. And my business partner said to me, we're not ready to go overseas. And I said, well, I am. So you stick with Australia, and I'll take the rights to the UK and Europe, and I think the US. I think he kept Australia, New Zealand. And then we upped sticks, packed our bags. Dominique was pregnant with Josh, so we moved country, started a family, started a business 17,000 kilometres away from home, 12,000 miles for the UK listeners or American listeners. And obviously had the concept and everything, but again, really had to start from scratch on a business that was already 3 years old and had a good reputation in Australia. And that came with its challenges, because doing business in England with no network, Sydney's very well connected, and I knew quite a few people. It's like anywhere, I guess, you do have to have a good network. But yeah, we started from scratch and obviously built it up over over a handful of years that led to us connecting.
And I mean, it really was ahead of its time, wasn't it? You didn't see anything else like that at the time. I mean, hopefully there'll be people listening to this who don't remember a time before smartphones. Don't remember that you had to basically use dial-up phones, etc. And the sort of time period we're talking about, mobile phones were just becoming kind of popular, weren't they? It wasn't like everybody had a mobile phone at the time, and you couldn't go on the internet on it.
No, you couldn't go. It was WAP. I mean, if you remember, WAP, and everyone said, WAP is crap. Like WAP was sort of what was it? Something web access protocol. I can't even remember what it was now, but it was very clunky. And if you recall, we had machines at Victoria Station, Victoria Coach Station. So any sort of transit location, and Hotmail, thank God for Hotmail, because Hotmail was our killer app at the time. All the travellers that would come through London, all the international people that wanted to hop onto their Hotmail or check the sports scores or check out, book a hotel or something. I think lastminute.com was just starting then as well. Lastminute.com was a bit of a darling, the .com darling, and it was all around that .com boom. Very similar sort of frothiness to the AI period that we're in now. We can talk more about that later. But yeah, it was when you look back now and you think about the convenience factor that it delivered to people that could just go up, and hopefully if the machines were working and they hadn't frozen.
I managed to get up on time,
and
go out and make sure that they weren't just hung.
Yeah, that's right. And that, again, when I think back to just how much value a smartphone delivers now, how much accessibility. We'll forget about the negative effects of being connected all the time. But if you just think about the convenience factor of just having so much power in your hand, whereas before, as you say, that period, when we were launching these kiosks, 98 to about 2005, it was, smartphones, I think Samsung were coming out with their smartphones maybe around 2006, 2006, 2007, I think. So Yeah, it was really ahead of its time at the
Yeah.
time. It was a great idea.
First iPhone was 2007, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So we're on the
iPhone
15
1,
now.
which couldn't even do 3G.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, before that, I suppose mobile internet was quite niche, wasn't it? Still, really.
Sony. I think Sony came out. Do you remember? I had this. I think it was like the Sony Pocket Phone or something. It was like a blue one, P900 or something. Sony was ahead of the game in terms of being able to get your internet on the move.
Yeah.
Obviously, well before the iPhone came out, as you say, like 2007, I think. But always had a fascination. Now, fast forward 20 odd years to Sydney Digital Marketing, very similar, still very much driven by online and digital, as it's now known. But it was the data. I was fascinated. If you remember, we were always trying to come up with a new homepage to load people onto, to either get them to spend another pound or another dollar.
Yeah.
But also fascinated with how we could track people's online interactions. And I guess that's what we do now, but more as an agency.
Yeah.
Doing that for other businesses.
I'm curious then, because I never really knew quite what happened with Webpoint and why it became, well, you sort of shut down Webpoint and started it again as Universal Kiosks, but then that didn't last very long. And then you ended up moving back to Australia. What actually happened?
So, yeah, look, good question. So I got approached. We had a backer come to Webpoint, very shrewd man, and he had a manufacturing business that was doing sort of sheet metal and things, and he saw the opportunity for us to manufacture our kiosks through his factory. But he was also dealing with another group who had some photo kiosks, like the Photo Me ones. And he combined us into a group. He sort of rolled us up into a group. So we'd have photo kiosks and internet kiosks. And it became known as Universal Kiosks. I didn't particularly enjoy the dynamic of this new organization. And Dominique and I had, obviously Josh by that time was probably about 4 or 5, I think. Yeah. We had always planned on coming back to Australia. We'd only ever planned on going to the UK for 2 years, ended up staying there for 6. And so we just decided one day, look, it's not really happening here. Let's sell the house we had there in Hove, and we'll head on back to Australia. So pretty much, had massive ambitions with taking Webpoint to the UK, and it was all around that .com boom. Thought we might either go for an IPO or we'd go for a trade sale. And I think I've got somewhere on my little DV tapes the recording of me talking to somebody at BT who was who was interested in picking us up.
Right.
And I put a price on the table, and that didn't happen. So it was it was time for us to head home. It was time for us to start our life again in Sydney. And yeah, that was pretty much it. So it didn't really go anywhere after that.
Right. Yeah.
Very. So I was going to say, it was a very, very labor-intensive business, as you remember. Machines were down, which would be bad from the landlord's perspective. If it was a rail track or BAA or Virgin or whoever it was, somebody would say, "Oh, that machine's always broken. Get rid of it." So it was very, very labor intensive. And whilst it was a profitable business, there wasn't the ability to scale without getting funding. And as I said, the guys that I did sort of do the roll up with, it didn't fit well, I guess, with where we were at on our life stage or life journey at that time.
Yeah.
So we had the opportunity to come home, so we took it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's just interesting to hear the stories of businesses and how they rise and fall, etc. Because most businesses fail, most startups fail. I turned towards entrepreneurship a couple of years ago, and I launched a site called School AI just over a year ago. And I've been trying to build it up, and it is growing very slowly though. But I've had sort of similar things. Trying to find a co-founder is, well, I've not found one so far.
Yeah.
And I've been through several people and tried out several people, and it's just so hard to find a match. And sometimes it seems really good at the start for the first week
Yeah.
or month or so. Everything's fantastic. And then you start to realize you're not quite aligned. People were just, giving you their initial kind of front, I suppose.
Yeah.
And once you start to peel back the layers, it's really hard to find someone who you actually sink in with enough to actually work on a business, because it is kind of like a marriage.
I was just about to say the same. It is. It's all relationships. Everything is a relationship. You have a relationship with your wife, with your partner, with your husband, with your girlfriend, with your boyfriend. You have a relationship with your family. You have a relationship with your customers. You have a relationship with your business partners, your employees, your employers. And 90% of the time, people put their best foot forward. And we have this conversation here within Sydney Digital as well, where I'll bring a client in, I'll introduce it to the guys and to the team, introduce them to the team, and it's all great at the beginning. They want something, we can deliver something for them. But then as you get down the track, like any relationship, you just start to uncover either the dynamic's great and it's wonderful and marvelous and everybody really understands each other and you have the same values, or it doesn't, and that creates problems. So we're getting to the point now where we're really starting to pick and choose who we want to work with, because I don't want any of my team waking up in the morning and just going, or Monday morning or any morning going, oh, another day. How am I going to do this?
Yeah.
And just sitting there, just going through the motions. And I was in a HubSpot partners meeting the other day, and talking about sort of the founder's dilemma, where because you're the founder of the business, you've got a vision, you're taking it somewhere, you're growing, you've got some sort of end goal or some sort of like first stage, second stage, third stage of destinations you want to get to. There's never a final destination.
Yeah.
And then you have to bring in other people around you to share that vision and stay motivated with you. But a lot of people, for them, it's just a 9-to-5 job. It's just how they get paid each week. And there's nothing you're going to be able to, no matter, you can build great culture, and culture's critically important, especially these days, because people have so many options, I guess, as to how they can make a living, run their lives, experience life. And so sometimes you have to remind yourself that not everybody is going to have the same not everybody's always going to have the same motivations as you and the same drivers as you. And really where it becomes, they're everything without them getting burnt out. And I've seen that as well. We've had people come through our team and they just work. And I see emails come from them at 10 o'clock at night. And I say, hey, what are you doing answering emails? Like, we don't encourage that sort of commitment, that sort of behavior. I appreciate it. Thank you. But I don't expect it. I don't want you working on weekends. I think now the pendulum's probably swung too far back, where everybody's got a little bit more cruisy. But finding that balance, especially as a growing business, we're still a small business. We're 14 people or something. So there's it's growing, and it's still 14 people, but it's still a small business. It's not like we're not doing 20, 30, $40 million a year or anything yet. But my point is finding the right people, building a culture that's sticky, that people enjoy coming to work, that they can build friendships around and some mateships. Like, it's not like you have to hang out with everybody at work all the time, but I think it's important that people get along at work and respect each other and enjoy having fun together. And making that work is work. It doesn't just magically happen, as I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I haven't got anywhere near that far. 14 people. I've essentially just stopped looking for a co-founder now, because I found it just takes so much time, and then every time so far it has just come to nothing. And I think, well, I've just wasted time waiting for these people to deliver on what they said they were going to do. And they didn't. And so I'm right back at the beginning, having to just do everything myself anyway. So I just thought, well, I'm just going to take some time away from that search for the time being. It gets to you sometimes, the amount of time you feel that you've just wasted, just like picking the wrong people.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And as we said earlier, you don't know until you know. You can't.
You have to go through it.
You have to go through it.
Yeah.
I had somebody, a dear friend of mine, still a dear friend of mine, but he had some enormous success with a very well-known surf label a few years back in Australia. He and some friends took this iconic Aussie surf label that was not really going anywhere, sort of lost direction. They rebuilt it. I think they sold it for many, many, many tens, if not hundreds. I think it was many tens of millions.
Yeah.
And I pinged him one day for a coffee and I said, look, you've got all this great experience taking businesses from here to here. Let's talk about a business partnership. I'd love to bring you in as a business partner. We got on really, really well. And then we were together for a couple of years as business partners, and he sort of brought a little bit of business my way. But from a business perspective, we were so similar that the relationship fell apart. Not the friendship remained, but the business relationship fell apart because we were too similar in our approach. We weren't similar in our approach. We were similar in our personality.
Right.
We both had slightly different views on things, but we were similar in our personality. Big blue vision, thinking and creative. And now when I look at the type of person that I have now as my GM, Ben, who's been with us for 10 years, we've been together for 10 years rather, as working together. He and I are totally different.
Yeah.
He brings so many skills to the business that I don't have, or I'm not good at. Detail, systems, process, logical thinking.
Yeah.
And I'm more the creative. And that works really well. Yeah. So I think when you have, just because you get along really well with somebody and, hey, man, we should go into business together, it's really identifying, well, what are the bits that I bring and the bits that you bring, like a jigsaw, I guess, that's going to fit, rather than them sort of overlapping. You don't want that. You want to be able to share that vision, but you really do need to bring different skill sets to the partnership. And I think that's where a lot of partnerships fail.
Yeah, that's interesting, actually. One of the people who I was talking to as a potential co-founder, and I found these people on the Y Combinator co-founder matching site.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever used that.
I haven't.
It's an obvious place to look. Y Combinator is a big, well-known thing, and obviously there's lots of entrepreneurs looking for people to start startups with. So somebody got in touch with me, and she was a second-time founder with a previous edtech startup. So it kind of seemed really good for quite a while. But one of the things I've been interested in, do you know Ray Dalio?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I remember saying this to her, and she was like, oh, yeah, of course I know Ray Dalio. And I was like, I don't know who knows Ray Dalio and who doesn't know Ray Dalio. I think he's more well-known than I assumed. But anyway, he's got a thing called Principles U, which is like a personality test that he uses in his businesses, which is quite a detailed thing. And you answer a lot of questions, and it gives you an idea of people's strengths and weaknesses, and you can use that to see how people might fit together and complement each other. And so I've been trying to get the potential co-founders to do this test, and she did the test, and we were just almost exactly the same. And it was kind of at that moment where previously everything seemed really good, and it was quite early and everyone was quite excited. But when I saw that, I just thought, oh God, this is not going to work. How can it work when we're almost exactly the same? We need to have different skills coming together. I need someone to challenge me on things and to be, throwing different angles around and things.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it didn't go much further. And I found that to be a really accurate, really useful tool, actually.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I might have to I'll have a look at that
Yeah.
after.
It's free as well to get started
Okay.
with. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I think those massive lesson in terms of just really looking at what those different skill sets are, how they complement each other, and understanding, and I guess being really clear on roles and responsibilities, and not having sort of any grey areas, especially at any stage of the business, really. But I was going to say especially at the start, but at any stage of the business, everybody needs to be in the right seat with the right roles, with the right hat on, with the right roles and responsibilities, so that it's super clear.
Yeah. I do want to get onto AI, and we will do very, very soon.
Yeah.
Is there any one kind of red flag that you never ignore about somebody who you're thinking about working with? Because I think I've been guilty of ignoring red flags. And when I look back, I think, I knew that was a problem at the time. And I thought, oh, maybe I'm being, jumping to conclusions. Maybe I don't know enough about this person. I should give them more of a chance. I've always been right about that first kind of feeling that made me doubt them in some way.
Yeah.
How do you kind of approach that?
I do work a lot, and probably like you, by the sound of things, I do work a lot off intuition.
Yeah.
I'm probably a lot better at it now because of my partner now has had a huge effect on how I make decisions and the values that I hold true. I think, she's had it. We've been together now 10 years. We've got a little girl together. So, we're my sort of family unit, but she has been instrumental, I guess, in changing the way that I view things. And probably like yourself, I'd go, met this great person, we're going to do this, and this, and this. And she'd be like, yeah, but hang on, what about this, and this, and this? And you go, okay, you have a point there. So I think intuition, as you say, going with your gut feel, the majority of people say this, things finish how they start. And sometimes when you've got a feeling about someone and it's not quite right, especially when it comes to bring on new team members.
Yeah.
That's always a big thing for us. We've had a couple of people come through the business in the last 6 months. We've been looking for a particular role. Just like looking for a founder or partner is hard. Also looking for the right people to join your team is hard. Yeah. And we had somebody come in, and my best friend randomly had met her at her first interview as well, because it was just over a coffee, and he happened to be walking past, and I told him that I was employing her, and he said, really? Anyway, long and short of it, 6 weeks later, it was thanks, but no thanks. And my 2 other senior colleagues in the business had the same feeling all the way through. So gut feel, and I wouldn't say there's any sort of hard and fast rule that I would use in terms of making those decisions. What I do now, though, is we're a lot more thorough in our screening process for employing people, rather than just, oh man, you seem like a nice person, you talk well, you present well, you've got a little bit of knowledge. Skills can always be taught, but attitude and personality and those soft skills, if you come with those, we can educate you and upskill you into the type of person that we need in the business. But I'm definitely a lot more rigorous in our interview process now, for not just for the team, but also now with our clients as well. We've been around for 10 years now, so we're getting to understand where there might be some red flags early on. Late to meetings, missing meetings, can we reschedule? You sort of think, well, if you're rescheduling now, you definitely get rescheduling down the track, as an example.
It's interesting what you were saying about listening to people around you as well. I found the same thing. My fiance at the moment, I would tell her about some of these people I've been trying out, and she would say, no, that's never going to work. And I know, I'd be like, what do you mean? No. We've got a process here. We're going to try working for like this long. We're going to working on this thing together. And there's all these reasons why it seems really good. And she would just be like, no. And she was always right.
Yeah. There's a fine line though, because the story that goes on in our head as entrepreneurs, founders, change makers, disruptors, whatever you want to call these people that are out there trying to build a business, take their idea, grow their idea, create a better life for themselves via their own business.
Mm-hmm.
There is a fine line between taking on that advice and acting on it acting on it all the time.
Yeah.
And the other side of that is the people that don't take the entrepreneurial founder disruptor path will never know what it's like to be in that head space. So whilst those comments and feedback are good and they keep us grounded and they do make us maybe second check something before just leaping straight into it. Sometimes when I talk about stuff at home and I'm just sharing because I've just got to get it out, and the feedback might be, why do you always do this? You're always complaining about the same thing. It's this, and this. Why don't you just do X, Y, Z? And then you go, well, I could do that, but that sort of goes against the grain of where I'm going in this direction. So I guess my point here is that the 95% of people that don't take their own destiny into their own hands from a business idea perspective are dealing with 95% of people who are happy just being in their job, doing what they're doing, getting paid at the end of every week or every fortnight or every month, going home, sticking on the TV or whatever it is they want to do to unwind. And they don't have that pressure of employees, clients, cash flow, bills, taxes, growth, fires, firefighting all the time. And that's fine. Some people just do not want to do that, but still they hate their job. 50% of people apparently just hate going to work every day. And I hate using that word hate, but it's true. 50% of people are just not happy with what they're doing, but they just don't want to make that change. There's that fear factor of what if I leave, this might happen or this might not happen. Could I start up my own business? How many people do you think about? Sorry, how many people do you meet that go, I've been thinking about starting my own business, but I don't know, just it's not the right time, or so everybody has our best interests at heart, I believe, those people that care for us with their advice. But in saying that, that's why it's only sort of 5%, or maybe it's even less of people that actually go off and forge their own path.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, look, we haven't even started on AI yet, but that's what happens when you don't speak to somebody for like more than 20 years.
That's right.
And then you've got like 1 hour and all of a sudden it's not actually very long at all.
Yeah.
So obviously you were kind of a bit of a tech pioneer back in the 90s with Webpoint and trying to bring public internet access to the masses. So how do you see AI at the moment? How much do you use it at the moment?
I am hugely excited to be alive at the time of yet another epochal technological leap. I use it a lot. I'm experimenting with it a lot. I'm not sort of shutting the doors just yet and locking myself away for sort of 72 hours at a time, just drinking loads of coffee, sort of Elon Musk style, and sleeping under my desk to really crack it. But I can see the use cases already that we're using it for in the business. As usual, the mainstream legacy press is sort of beating up lots and lots of stories about it. It's going to end humanity, and we're going to, 70% of jobs are going to go. And so, look, there's a lot of fear and uncertainty out there about AI at the moment, and I'm always surprised when I speak to people sort of outside of my circle who don't know just or don't have any idea of where this is headed in terms of the incredible changes it's going to facilitate in our lives. But it's only because I'm in the industry, and you think everybody knows about it because it's such big news. LinkedIn's always blowing up about AI, and different newsletters that are pouring in each day. So, look, I think if you're in the space, you're going, "Wow, okay, this is cool." And there's daily updates, and new releases, and new platforms coming out, and so it's exciting. I like that kind of energy. That's new stuff, shiny stuff that I've got to work out and see what I could use it for. That really excites me. I'm in the throes of also establishing an agency just to focus on AI solutions and AI activity rather than do it through Sydney Digital Marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Slowly, because it's not like I want to be focusing on these two different things equally, but I'm just having this side, starting to bring it to life. So, look, I see a lot of people say, "Oh, look, ChatGPT and these LLMs, obviously they're only as good as how they were programmed from the start, and some of them have got a little bit of bias here and there." But from my perspective right now, using it to help me get started on something, I was very late to be diagnosed with ADHD, only about in the last year or so. So finding it easy to focus and stay focused on something has always been a challenge for me, which is probably why I like technology so much, because it just changes all the time, and that suits my way. But what I found now in using generative AI platforms is I can either type out an idea and it will spit out the framework for me to build on, or if it's the weekend, for instance, the actual chat app on the ChatGPT app where you can just talk to it.
Yeah,
it's fantastic, absolutely brilliant. I can just sit at home for an hour or so on the weekends and chat to it and program it up, make up some of my own agents without having to sit there and typing. Like I'm trying to create, a second Simon, a virtual Simon, if you like, and give it my entire entrepreneurial backstory, a little bit like what we've been talking about today. To give my entire entrepreneurial backstory, so it will help me generate LinkedIn posts, for instance. But without me having to type it in, I'd much rather just speak it in. The voice recognition on it is pretty damn good. It's probably up at the 98% mark, I'd say. It's not often that it gets a word wrong. So I'm fascinated with just ChatGPT as it sits at the moment, with all the sort of usual tools and things, sort of the ways that we're using it for. We're building our own agents within ChatGPT, within the business, to develop client personas and to get some of the heavy lifting stuff done, in order to just be more efficient, get stuff done faster. Is it doing it better? It still needs that critical thinking. It still needs that human element to come in there and give it that nuance, put it in that tone of voice, whether it's a personal tone of voice or a company's tone of voice. New way that I'm looking at using it just today, we get a lot of phone calls come through the business, and being a sort of a distributed workforce, I've got 5 here in Sydney, I've got 4 or 5 just up the coast, and then I've got a few people that are digital nomading around the planet at the moment. So we don't have sort of a fixed phone call reception or anything to answer calls. But because we've been getting busier and a few calls are being missed, we use a call tracking platform to track all of our calls coming in, so we can see what's working, where we're getting our calls from. So I've just gone and looked for an AI answering agent that basically will answer our phone calls, and it's just, "Hi, welcome to Sydney Digital Marketing. how can I help you? And it literally is just an agent that you'll be talking to, but an AI voice, and you'll be able to say, can I book a meeting? Can I book a call? So we won't miss a call. It'll always be answered, and it will be a free text AI agent that will answer those calls. So we'll be able to track everything that's being said, and we'll be able to offer a much more efficient service. And it sounds like natural languaging as well.
Right.
Something like that excites me. And what I like to tell to our clients is everything that we're recommending to our clients as a digital marketing agency, we're trying on ourselves first. So I like to try all these things in-house, and then I can go to clients and say, hey, man, check this out. We've just been doing this for ourselves. It's been really successful. Or they might say, hey, I've heard about this. What do you think? And we can say, yeah, we tried that and it was crap. It didn't work. So I think it's 1999, 1998 all over again in terms of the noise and the frenetic hype around AI. But in saying that as well, there's some brilliant use cases in there. There is a lot of hype, but there's also a lot of very smart platforms, old and new. Adobe just came out yesterday, and I think they're now porting their access into Google and ChatGPT, and allowing API access into. I don't know if I can't remember if it's Midjourney, but certainly they're saying they're positioning themselves as, there's other people out there, but let's use us. Let's stay within the Adobe Photoshop or Firefly platform or framework, but you can tap into the power of these other tools as well. So I think from a creative perspective, you still need that critical thinking in there from a content perspective. From images and video, that's a whole other thing, because that is something that is just going to be a real game changer and provide access to a lot of people who may have been limited in their creativity simply because of the cost. They can't afford to go and get a graphic design, or they can't afford to get a good strong logo designed, or they couldn't afford to make a little video explainer or something. So I think where it sits now, everybody I'm talking to, even some friends I was talking to in the UK, people saying, okay, yes, it's great, it's exciting, it's groundbreaking, so cool, but how do you monetize it? Because what happens is you come up with an idea, I've got this great idea and we use AI, and somebody goes, cool, I'll just go and create the same idea. I'll use AI to tell me how to create that idea. So, it's I think it's a bit of a wild west out there right now. And like it was 24, 25, 26 years ago at the dawn of the, Web 1.0, there's a lot of noise. Everybody's sort of looking to what to invest in, who's going to own, this next half of the digital age, if you like. Each sort of technology age, I believe, lasts sort of around 40 years or so. And so we're about 25 years into the digital age at the moment, made so about halfway. And I was thinking to myself last night, thinking about this podcast, thinking about our chat, and just saying, okay, we talk about where we're going to be in 50 years. Where's humanity going to be in 50 years? Where's humanity going to be in 500 years? Like, go right out. I've been watching like some sort of history documentary or something last night. I was going, well, 500 years, that's a lot. If you go back 500 years, people were still, navigating around the world in big wooden ships with sails and, still making things by hand. So how will this time, the dawn of the second millennium, third millennium, the dawn of the 2000s, how will that be judged by history down the track in 500 years' time? Will we have molded with aliens? Will we have just turned into these, half robot, half man, woman machines that are, again, coming at us very quickly? And back to your original story, come back to AI. That's the next. That, I think, the robotics piece is even bigger than AI. The AI at the moment is just learning. We're like Facebook and Google and all of those platforms, Instagram. We fed it with all the information. We gave it all the content for it to learn from us and then develop the algorithm. Same thing's happening with generative AI at the moment. We're feeding it with all of this information. It's getting to know us. You just then insert that into a network of humanoids, robots, home robots. The home robot thing is the next home PC in my book.
Yeah. I think you and I probably look at a lot of the same kind of social media stuff around AI, I'm guessing. So I've also seen a lot of these things, but as we were kind of talking about earlier, people get siloed, I suppose. And a lot of people are not really aware, I don't think, about how fast robotics is progressing and where it's up to now. And the fact that we already now have robots that are capable of doing home kind of tasks like we used to think of in the Jetsons and things like that, that already have AI inside, like GPT-4 quality. Obviously, they're still a bit expensive, but they're not going to be that expensive for very long. They're already talking about sort of $30,000-$40,000 kind of dollars kind of mark, which you can see some businesses starting to use. And also, if they're powered by today's AI, let's say 2 years down the line when we're on GPT-6, and let's say that's progressed in orders of magnitude beyond what GPT-4 is like, then you're already very close to having real Android kind of robots that we've just seen in science fiction before.
Yeah.
But I think it's going unnoticed, largely.
Yeah. And you have to ask, is that by design? Elon's come out and said that he wants to build his Optimus and have his Optimus build his Optimus. Like the robots are building the robots, basically. So suddenly you can have 1 billion of these out there. So the cost, then the cost, not the cost of entry, but the cost of purchase, when you've got the manufacturing down and you're able to ship these things out, and then maybe it becomes a bit like the mobile phone game where it becomes a subscription. You have a subscription to your ChatGPT service, which serves your home robot. So yes, it might be $9,990 to get started. However, there's $150 subscription a month, a little bit like Apple with the with the App Store and with their Apple Plus subscriptions. So the subscription model becomes more valuable than the actual hardware model. But Bodhi, my 7.5-year-old. So I've got Josh, obviously, who's 25, and I've been blessed to be able to do it again. Second time around, 18 years difference by a different beach this time. But she's in the second year of primary school, and I think to myself, will there, controversial opinion ahead, will there actually be value in going to high school in 5 years' time? She's got year 3, 4, 5, 6. She's got another 4 years of school.
Yeah.
So you go, okay, so I could have a home tutor, a robotic home tutor that knows everything about everything, literally everything about everything, and also understands Bodhi's personality, understands my personality, understands her mum's personality. So, and our values and dynamics and everything. So you get this superhuman person, being, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
In your home that can talk to Bodhi as by that stage, 10, 11, 12-year-old. Now, the school system, I'm not talking anything about teachers, but as you probably know, being in the education sector, the school system is based on a Victorian system from 150, 60 years ago, in order to bring kids in, to get them ready to go back into the factories.
Yeah.
So we're well overdue for an overhaul of that system. Obviously, there's other things at play that keep it in the system.
Yeah.
Keep the system as it is. But surely the missing link there is obviously is socializing, and I get that.
Yeah.
Buddy loves school. She loves seeing her classmates and hanging out and running around the playground. But surely, there's maybe the just the structure of school is different, and that you might be doing a lot more learning from home. You are going to have some. Surely, you're going to have some employment displacement as all of this, and certainly from a knowledge worker's perspective, whether that's legal or financial. None of the banks want to have employees. Surely they'd much rather, in the same way they're getting rid of cash and making it all digital. Why would they want to have employees there if they can make that all digital as well?
Yeah, employees are expensive.
Yeah, people are expensive, and you got to manage them as well.
Yeah.
So you can imagine, that being the case, you're going to have this huge displacement of people that are being made redundant, that are losing their jobs, and they're either going, okay, well, now what do I do? Do I then set myself up as an entrepreneur, which I can do because I've got AI that can build a business plan for me, come up with an idea, come up with some names, come up with the look and feel, come up with a prospectus, and again, we're talking, last year I was saying this is just day one. Everything about AI was just day one. It was still very, very fundamental. But now, fast forward that 2-3 years down the track, literally just another 2 years even, the capabilities of some of these models and beyond, the multimodal side of these models is right now, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Imagine once again, it's trained itself on more and more data, another year's worth of data. So that's what I think about AI.
Yeah. Well, that's that cleared up. You were saying that you're not sure how you monetize these things because other people can just kind of replicate what you're doing already. It makes me think about the GPT store, OpenAI's GPT store.
Yes.
Such a bad name. Why did they call it GPTs? It's so confusing. It's so hard to actually make it understood what you're talking about.
Yes. Yes.
But people sort of thought that was going to be like a new app store, like the Apple App Store. And it's really kind of just flopped, it seems, and people have lost interest in it. I never really thought it was going to catch on because it's still too much like programming, and not in the way that you have to actually do the coding yourself, but you have to actually think, oh, I want to create an application that does this, and then it will do that, and maybe it'll access this information. Most people don't think like software engineers. So a lot of people won't even have conceived that they would be able to create a program using OpenAI's GPTs to help them with things. What do you think about that? Just I don't want to spend too long on that.
Yeah, look, we were hugely excited about it as well. Jan, who's our head of business transformation, he and I work very closely together, and again, we're sort of very excited about similar levels of excitement, if you like. I think he's probably backed off from his excitement a little bit. To your point, we went in there, and I just think people have realised that at the moment, as a very broad brush I'm speaking with, but there's very little value around coming up with some of these ideas because somebody else can just go out really, really quick. The barrier to entry to develop an app and to go to the App Store and all of the associated things when apps were first being built, you had to know what you were doing. You really had to know something about software and computing and coding. Now, not so much. So maybe it's just lost its impetus or its effect, simply because I think a lot of these apps as well were going on there and people could go right to the app. How have you been programmed? How have you been built? And it would just spit out its prompt. You go, okay, cool. I'll just go and create that for myself, but just create another one. I think that's what I think about that at the moment. Like you, I thought, wow, cool, this is really going places. Then it sort of fizzled, and the general populace was going, it's a bit of a nothing burger.
Yeah.
And then I probably, again, apart from developing our own agents, haven't gone back in there really to look around and see what other agents are out there.
Yeah. I mean, I tried making my own GPTs and it was a disaster. didn't do anything that they were supposed to do. And I found that just using GPT-4 had much better results. Just vanilla GPT-4.
Yeah.
I was like, well,
Yeah.
what a waste of time.
Exactly. Yeah. Perplexity is good as well. Just talking outside of other platforms, I found Perplexity to be really good.
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT is still very, very good. It's still sort of my go-to. I was using Midjourney before sort of the DALL-E 3 came out.
Mm-hmm.
Probably haven't gone back to Midjourney for a while, but Bodhi, my daughter, loves Midjourney and now loves ChatGPT. Just 7. Create a bunny, make it fluffier, make it cuter. She's already there. Like, she came to me the other day and said, "Oh, I made this." I'm like, "When did you make that?" She goes, "Oh, this morning." Like 7-year-old. So that So the GPT store probably needs another iteration. I think probably a little bit more time for people just to come up with ways to really be able to extract value, whether that's monetizing it or whatever that value looks like. Yeah. But there's always got to be some sort of value in place, I think, to really incentivize people.
I think the reason I wanted to just talk about that briefly was because you were talking about how to monetize things, but also it made me think, do you think we'll end up in a situation in a couple of years where someone like you running your business won't need to employ other people so much, and essentially you might end up in a place where you can just be a one-man band and do things just as well?
Yeah, I agree.
Do you think it's going to end up that way?
I have that thought. I haven't thought it through to the end, but it's certainly something that I've considered, because generative AI does remove the barriers to entry to so many things. So does it shrink the marketplace? I mean, to put things into perspective, as an agency, we're partnering with about 25 brands at a time. Okay, so we don't have hundreds and hundreds of brands come through, but we do, I guess, we're more focused on the brands that we have, so we charge a little bit more. We charge a premium, so you get more attention rather than being one of 100 or one of 200 clients at an agency. You're one of sort of 25. And that again is by design. I don't want to grow a business to 50 staff or 100 staff or something. I want the people that work with us to have a lifestyle. I want to have a lifestyle. I don't want to be working 24/7. So yeah, it's possible. But sorry, I remember my train of thought now. I think it shrinks the market, but I think there'll always be people out there. Like, I like to use the analogy of programming the VCR. So back in the day when we had VCRs at home, it would be the kids who were programming because the parents didn't know how to program the VCR. And they'd always be flashing 4 zeros on there, right? So there will always, I believe, for a good amount of time, there will always be people that go, yeah, I know I could do it with AI, but too hard. I don't understand it. Most people don't even know how to run this thing.
Yeah, true. Play a couple of games, use WhatsApp, and that's it.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? Like, most people don't know how to really. There's a lot of technophobes out there. But in saying that, Josh's generation. Josh was born in my son, who's born in '99. He's probably one of the first connected kids, where we had consoles and phones, and then he would have been 8 or 9 when the smartphone came out. Bodhi doesn't know anything else other than smartphones and just being connected and just being able to do anything on demand. So there's that generation coming through, but there's still people of my age in their late 40s and mid 50s who just have no idea or very little idea when it comes to technology, let alone AI. So us as an agency, we're looking to double the size of our client role, to get from sort of 25 up to 50 over the next couple of years. Talking 50 businesses in a country of 25 million people, and I'm in a city of 5 million people. It's not going to be hard for us to service 50 businesses. But for other people that rely, that might have a business or a service that relies on volume, and they start to see 20% of their marketplace disappear because of AI, that's a whole other story.
Yeah. I mean, this you could talk for about a week about this stuff.
We could. We could.
And go on.
I was going to say, maybe there's a part 2 to this in 3 months' time or something. Once
I think so.
Have come out. and we can say, well, when we spoke in April about AI, now here we are with ChatGPT 5 or some other revolutionary. Let's come back and see what the mood in the room is like then.
I mean, we're at a point now where everybody has seen Sora. Not everybody has seen Sora, as I've found talking to people. Some people have never even heard of Sora, but I know you have.
Yes.
We're at a point where everybody has seen what it can do, but it's not available to anybody yet. But even if OpenAI decide not to release that extremely powerful tool into the world, there's going to be an open source tool hot on its heels. It'll just be 6 months behind. So we're not going to be able to escape a world where we have completely realistic text to video, but we're not quite there yet. So it would be interesting in a few months' time to see how we're coping in that kind of reality.
I would hedge my bets that we won't see it this side of the US elections, because I think the opportunity to create an absolute scandal at your fingertips by the planet, by anybody on the planet, it's a temptation too hard to resist on both sides.
There again, though, what could you really come up with? What could you sit down and write that would be more of a scandal and more outrageous than all the things that have happened in the US since 2015?
Yeah, since 2015.
You couldn't write the stuff that Donald Trump has done.
Yeah.
And I also kind of think even something like Sora, I don't think it's going to change anybody's minds about things in the US. If you watch some made-up scandal, people are so entrenched in their views about that.
I just think, I guess my comments more around the point that, things are a bit of a powder keg situation in the US at the moment. There's a lot of issues going on there, and again, a whole other story. Like every other great empire. No offense to my American friends and any Americans listening to this, but we've had the Roman Empire, we've had the Greek Empire, the Dutch Empire, the British Empire, the Portuguese. We've had these empires rise and fall, and why should we consider that our time in history is any different to any other time in history over many, many thousands of years? It's a great book. I don't know if you've heard of it. Just to, I guess, give my parting words, but The Fourth Turning, which looks back over 300 or 400 years of pretty much American history, but a bit of global history. But it breaks it down. It breaks it down into these cycles of about 80 years. And within those 80-year cycles, there's 4 cycles of about 20 years. First one is sort of this renewal and great sense of hope and, the Renaissance. And then, it gets, we get to sort of a point of, I think it's the third turn is sort of disillusionment, and things sort of start to fall apart a little bit. If you counted the years from, say, World War II, when World War II ended, you could say, right, the late 40s, 50s, 60s, fantastic, feeling of euphoria. And then we hit into the 60s, where there's a bit of a revolution. People are starting to say, no, we've got to change our ways. Then we went into the 70s and the 80s. And now we're in this fourth turning, which is where things the system really starts to break down and crumble and fall apart. And that's it's kind of where we're at the moment, with wars and potential wars and just flashpoints going on globally. People questioning the system and the agenda and the narrative and all of those sorts of things. So combine all of that together with a very important election coming up in the US, 50 or 60 other elections going on around the world as well. AI coming into the mix, robotics coming into the mix. We're at an incredibly interesting time to be alive right now. And, I think we're going to be AI will underpin some enormous changes for this planet over the next 5 years. Enormous changes. We won't recognize how we did work and how we did life, I think, just within 5 years, given the pace of change and the fact that there's no regulation right now around it as well.
Yeah. But how do you even regulate something that's spread globally and essentially decentralized in some ways?
And an LLM can live locally on your phone. It doesn't even have to be connected to the internet. So governments,
Yeah.
Take that.
Yeah. It's funny. I would like, in another episode, perhaps, I'd like to talk to you about maybe crypto as well. I don't know if you had
Yes,
much experience with the last kind of crypto run, that we're now in a crypto winter still. But it's another interesting story about technology that could be incredibly useful.
it is.
But
Yeah, it's
one for another
blockchain. I
time.
mean, crypto is one part of the blockchain, but I think that, and again, it is part of our next conversation. We'll have to leave it at this, but yeah, I'd love to chat about blockchain, because I think that concept and how that can affect tokenization of
Yes.
everything as well.
Oh,
Given
yes.
given the
It's just because
tokenization.
I don't speak to many people who say the word tokenization. So to me,
Yeah,
that's really
right.
nice to hear. I
Yeah.
wrote an article about this. It was published by Bankless maybe a couple of years ago about tokenization
Please
of energy. So I'll
please
send
send it
that to
on.
you. Now it
Send it
seems
to me.
it kind of seems a bit ridiculous and ahead of its time and caught up in the last crypto bull run.
Yeah,
But there's still interesting stuff to talk about.
I'd love to read it. I'd love to read it.
Yeah.
I have to jump onto my next meeting, Keiran. It's been such a great catch up, and I'm sorry we actually didn't manage to get a little bit more time, because, as I say, we could have kept on talking and talking.
Yeah, and I've actually got a list of probably around 100 questions, and I've realised that it's completely useless. You might pick like one or two, but there's absolutely no way.
You can see now why what's his name, Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO. You can see now why his interviews go on for, or his chats go on for like 2.5 hours.
Oh, so
3
easy.
hours.
Yeah, Lex Friedman as well, if you watch.
Yeah, Lex Friedman as well. Yeah.
But yeah, let's definitely have a rematch sometime.
Rematch sounds good.
Yeah.
We'll continue conversation on email, because I didn't even get to catch up with you and find out what's been going on.
I know.
In your work.
Yeah, these things are always totally one-sided as well, which I like. It's like, yeah, right. All right, see you. I'm not talking about myself.
Really good to see you,
Simon.
man. Thank you. Lovely to meet you. I'd love to catch up with you again.
All right.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye now.